All right. We are going to have a fascinating discussion about building trust in regards to infrastructure and security in blockchain. So hold your hats. This is going to get fun. My name is Ethan Pierse. Thanks for joining us. We will get started with some just very quick intros for context. Why are you here? Why are we talking about this subject together? And so I think we'll just go in order. So Elliott, we can start with you.
Hey everyone, Elliott, Chun here, Architect Partners. We are a crypto and blockchain dedicated M&A and strategic financing advisory team. So everybody in this room and at this conference at some point in time needs to monetize whatever they're doing, and that's what we help do. I'll just start with a number that Chainalysis came out 2024, 41 billion in illicit activity. That could upsize to 51 billion. That means that's 142 or 140 million dollars a day. Okay, that's why we're talking about this topic. How do we solve the problem of 140 million a day that's happening in illicit activity on chain?
Clarisse?
Hi everyone, I'm Clarisse. I'm co-founder and CEO of DFNS. We're a wallet infrastructure platform. We started 4 or 5 years ago because we thought that the industry were missing the secure tool to safely build on-chain. And so what we do is that we deliver for financial use cases, whether you're a fintech, a bank, a tokenization platform, an infrastructure that enable you to access safe wallets and transact on-chain. So the subject of trust has been very much in our mind for the past 4 or 5 years, and yeah, happy to be here to discuss it.
And Eric?
Thank you. So I'm Eric Wragge. I run business development at the Algorand Foundation. Algorand is a layer 1, secure layer 1 blockchain. Prior to that, I was in finance for many years, so I'm very passionate about moving assets from traditional financial systems onto blockchains. Obviously, that can only happen in a safe and secure way if things are built properly and the systems are robust.
So my name, again, is Ethan Pierse. I'm the founder of Borderless Ventures. I invest into AI, Web3, creator economy, and sustainability stuff based in Tallinn and Singapore. I live here in Paris. I'm also the founder of the Creator Economy Institute because I'm really excited about all the solopreneur kind of democratization of being able to build stuff thanks to agentic and generative AI and all these other fun things. And so this subject is a very important one because the technologies that we're talking about are super interesting. Technically, inherently, the trustless kind of idea that we can just, there's no way humans can mess up this stuff. That's the reason we're using blockchains and whatever. But we've managed to create a lot of drama around blockchain and crypto due to other reasons on the finance side and things. How do we build trust so that people understand that these technologies are or can be an integral piece of, as we move forward with, especially with AI scaling up in so many ways, the transaction layer behind that could very much be all blockchain. How do we build this trust concept? One of the things we talked about in our, we had a call before the panel to discuss things was the idea that for all the people who aren't in crypto, the Web 2 version of this, how do we communicate to them? How do we explain the trust side of this? I think people kind of in crypto kind of understand some of how that might work on the blockchain side, but the Web 2 people don't, that doesn't mean anything. So just first thoughts on how do we build trust? How does this technology allow us to build trust to then move forward and do all the amazing things we say we want to do with blockchain? Whoever wants to start. Okay, you have 3 very different perspectives, so.
I'll start. I think there's a bit of a disconnect. So people who are deep into technology, the thing that they find beautiful or the thing that's amazing is they say, well, you can trust the technology. The computer chip is going to do what the computer chip does. 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2. And there's a certain mathematical beauty to that. Where it becomes unbeautiful for most of the world is when the unexpected happens. When assets when somebody opens their wallet and the assets are gone, for example. Or they're trusting infrastructure and things go missing, things get hacked. That's where it becomes very unfun. Or even, indeed, when people lose their private keys. I think if we're going to get mass adoption, if we're going to get millions of people engaging with this technology, these issues need to be dealt with, and it needs to be people talk about kind of grandmothers need to be able to use it. We need to be able to handle these events in life. What happens when somebody dies? What happens when they haven't written everything down? And so I think there's maybe, we can take the beautiful thing that technology does, which is operate in a mathematical, according to the laws of physics way, but there needs to be a human element taken into account.
Clarisse, with the kind of the wallets as a service perspective, you're providing this a part of the stack that is very much necessary for people to be able to secure these assets. What are your thoughts on building trust?
So when I started Defense, I started because I was super excited by the fact that blockchain could enable new use cases with better utility for users. And what I was noticing is that everybody was kind of going back to building from the beginning, which was, we need a wallet, or how are we going to get our user coming to our application if they don't have a wallet? And so what was very incredible to me in 2019 was that I was a very big believer that every single way we have today of exchanging value from one party to another would run on-chain tomorrow. Whether we're talking about fintechs, whether we're talking about banks, they will all adopt blockchain technology, not because they love blockchain technology, but because it drags too much efficiency not to adopt it, right? So I was very much convinced of that long-term horizon, yet what was missing was the kind of essential pillars, infrastructure pillars, to enable people to not reinvent the wheel and start from wallet to integrating blockchains to building application, but make sure that that part was taken care for. And so we started Defense with a very much developer-first view in our product, and so we built an API-first solution so we could completely abstract away the complexity of managing keys, the complexity of integrating with blockchains, and make sure as well that the foundation of our industry were going to be safe, right? Because what we were super scared was that every kind of 12 months, 18 months, we will run into the next scandal of an exchange being hacked, a platform being hacked, and people losing confidence in our space, right? So for us, it was very, very important that the foundation and the building blocks that are really kind of at the basis of any application being built on-chain were safe. So I could go, more in details if you want on a follow-up questions around how we do it, but that's very much, I think, our contribution and how we we're super excited to see today that there are use cases that are outside of crypto trading, scaling, and we think that now the tools that you have to be able to focus on application is going to make blockchain technology used in many more applications.
Yeah, we have to get this right as an industry. The first hurdle that we had, and I come at it from all the institutions, all the strategics that are involved in looking at this industry and saying, do I get involved? How do I get involved? Why do I get involved? Is it the right time? The biggest hurdle was the US regulatory environment. That appears to be getting fixed now. The second one is security, trust, all the stuff, what defense is actually built to do. We have to get this right because no institutions are going to come into our industry if we come in and we can't even solve how we access the technology from the start. I mean, it goes all the way, like Clarisse was saying, right at the wallet. I mean, there are vulnerabilities that our industry inherently has that human society has not figured out yet, right? I mean, we're talking, how many people in this forget their email password? Right? We have simple things like that, and now you're adding all these complexities when you're trying to deal with what's ironically supposed to be a trustless technology. So we have to get this right, and the stakes are extremely high. I believe that by 2030, 75% of what we know as an asset is going to be on-chain. There's 0% chance that we get to 75% chance unless we fix trust and unless we fix security. And it's ironic, we were talking about this before. The fascinating thing about being at NFT RWA Paris is you have every use case known to human society that is like here right now in the same room. And this topic of trust, do we have it? It's not there yet, and we need to get it there. Otherwise, we're not going to get the next billion users into this technology, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
And so the technical piece is super important in terms of the actual infrastructure and how that is secure. So that's definitely one piece. Obviously, if people are using the same password for their bank account, their email, and everything else, we're going to have a huge problem if anybody believes self-custody, like anybody's going to deal with their 24 special words. Like, that's just a BS story when they don't care about their security or privacy in any other place. So that's something that has to be fixed in order for this to be accessible. One of the things we talked about on our call is also public perception, because we need to onboard more people into this. Obviously, it can't scale until more people have wallets, so that then more people can, whether it's rewards and loyalty programs, whether it is the crypto assets themselves, whether it's real world assets because it's whatever financial thing that we're doing. So we keep onboarding people, and then we do something that makes them all go away. We talked about the fact that on a Friday night, you got everybody in crypto Twitter and everybody who is starting to look at this going, wow, maybe the US situation could change because we have a president who says he wants to do something about that, and everybody's super excited. Saturday night, all the influencers go to a party. Tuesday, they all get rugged because they all got really excited about a coin that lots of retail, regular people got into and lost everything. That kind of message is a very difficult one for us because we need to bring more people into crypto, but we can't bring them in order to then have fraud or other things take place. So how do we balance this issue of creating technical solutions that secure and protect people with the fact that we also have to send a message that this is trustworthy?
And I'll take the first cut on that one. My takeaway from the Trump token is...
I didn't say it.
is that it was issued on Saturday morning. Markets were closed on Friday because it was MLK and an inauguration. Generally speaking, the market operated as one would want it to. This is something that traditional markets cannot do. And it's ironic that SIBO just announced they're going 24/5 trading, 24/5/7. So they're doing 24 hours a day, 5 days a week for trading equities. Meanwhile, our industry can launch a token on a holiday weekend, and generally speaking, the markets operated as we would have thought. So the narrative in my mind needs to be that. Now, we also need to have we're getting better at naming things as an industry. We've done very poorly at that, generally speaking. But now at least we know, hey, that's a meme coin, and so people should have expectations of what it means to participate in something like that. Tokenized RWA, very different. I don't love the phrase, but at least people know what you're talking about when you're saying tokenized RWA. We as an industry need to control the narrative and be able to name things a little bit better so the people that aren't in our industry can have confidence that they are participating in something that they want to and not participating in something that they didn't intend to.
So if we are looking at real-world assets, so whether it's real estate, stocks, any kind of financial instrument that we happen to have as an asset out there that could be coming on chain, Clarisse, how do we then create a technical solution that protects people through a wallet that allows them to own and possess these assets and work with them, but that also they understand and is accessible? Like, what are your thoughts on how we balance the technical side of security with the perception or the access or the onboarding into the space?
We've been big believers that the solution is in transparency. So be excellent at what you do and be transparent to your customers so you actually create the trust, because we like, the model in security is called zero trust. In zero trust doesn't mean you don't trust. It means that you have all the cards in your hand to trust the system because things are transparent. They're open sourced. You have access to the audits. You have access to the API documentations. Nothing is in kind of behind closed doors. So the first thing is educating and giving access. So transparency about what you do, how you build things, getting also the tools for developers to be able to build the implementation that they need depending on the regulatory constraint they have. So we went ahead and also have some legal ops in certain jurisdictions to show why this type of implementation was self-custodial, why it was custodial, and what were the do's and the don'ts. So generally speaking, it's about making sure that all the bad practices that were in the past, which, fair enough, the industry was young and growing, are out. No, you don't operate an exchange out of 2-ledger nano because you need to have a compliance framework. You need to make sure that you can actually retrieve the way the keys that are managing by the ops. You need to make sure, today you have a framework in Europe that is applied to all VASP, which is DORA. And DORA is very specific about how you handle critical service providers, right? And so, for instance, segregation of duties is something that is not done by any provider, but us, in the space, which is like you need to be able to also give very specific access to your developers that your compliance officers cannot see, right? So it goes about granularity, transparency. And the reason why I'm speaking about that, though your question was on the retail side, is we do believe that providing the best developer experience will enable developers, builders, CEOs to provide the best user experience. So if you have all the tools, if you can actually build the implementation you want, then you'll be building the best UX and you'll be trusting, or you'll enable your user to trust your platform. Going to the RWA specifically, and just to finish on that, I think there's something that, the blockchain is only as good and as transparent as the data you put on it, right? And so I think the problem with RWA when you kind of, drill down is how do I guarantee that the value that is being shown is actually the value in real life, right? And here I think that's our job, and our job, for instance, as a wallet provider, and we haven't solved that part completely, is to make sure that we can rely, connect, integrate, create a network of third-party providers whose job and liability is to guarantee the data that is being inputted on-chain at a moment in time when you start an RWA tokenization process.
Eric?
So I have something to add, which is, aside from the technical part, I'm going to say that the most unhelpful sentence ever in the history of Web3 is code is law. It's not the law. The law is the law and code is code. And it might not matter if the only kind of assets that we're dealing with are unreal assets. If the only thing that we're dealing with is sort of bits of computer code, maybe then it doesn't matter. As soon as you start to move into the real world and you think about things like real estate, or you think about a share of a company, or you think about a bond or a fund, all of these things have value because the legal system and the society in which they're located gives them value. So in every legal system, in every country, you might own a piece of real estate. There are circumstances under which your society and the state can take that away from you. And I would say that's never going to change. It doesn't matter what you put on a blockchain. It doesn't matter what you put in a database. It doesn't matter what piece of paper you might hold or not hold. And I think if we're going to move into this sort of adoption phase where we're thinking about real assets, putting these things on chain, what are we putting on chain? We're putting on chain a representation of the world in which we live. And I think until we sort of recognize that, then there's a big barrier. So really, if we are to get adoption of real-world assets in particular, that linkage between what's happening digitally on-chain and what happens in the real world needs to be robust. It needs to be extremely tight. And it flows both ways. For example, if a token is meant to represent ownership and it transfers from one person to another, the legal system needs to recognize that for that to be a meaningful transaction. And it needs to work the other way. For most assets, there can be involuntary transfers. Think about a contentious divorce, for example, where the judge allocates assets between two parties. One of those parties might not like the outcome, but the outcome will be what actually happens. If the judge says the house goes to one person, that's where the house is going to go. Unless the chain can reflect that, it's going to end up being a corrupted version or a corrupted view of what goes on in the real world. So I think that linkage is extremely important, and progress will be made when we get beyond this idea of code being law, because it isn't.
So then, as we look at moving forward and building trust in this infrastructure and the technology itself of blockchain so that we can scale all these asset classes, that there is a strong linkage between the asset and the digital version of it, that we have people that can trust it, that we can onboard to get more and more people into these things. We can already do so much of the securities tokens things around real estate and all kinds of different financial things, but there's just not enough people to use it, so it doesn't scale. What needs to happen next, whether it is regulatory, whether it is technical, whether it is a combination and cultural and different things. What do you see as we've got 9 minutes left? What do you, as your thoughts on what needs to happen next in any of those or all of those domains for us to move forward so that people have trust in these systems so that the concept of where we want to go with real world assets or tokenized securities or these kind of the ideas can scale? Thoughts? Elliott?
First, we got it right. Okay, history is going to show that everyone that was here in 2025 in Paris, we're here because we know we have the answer key. We are right. We're going to be on the right side of history because we're adopting this technology. The velocity of innovation is happening so fast, though, that if you look, look at Clarisse and Defense. They are at the forefront of building this, and they haven't solved everything yet. So there's a level of patience that we have to get things right. We're going to have to do a lot of experimentation to get things wrong so we can learn from that and then adjust so that we can get it right. That needs to happen, and it will happen, and it does happen. I mean, there's a lot of experimentation that's going on. But there's also this kind of inherent rush that we have as an industry because we want to move. And we think, oh my God, are we early? Are we late? Are we too late? We're still very early in the cycle. And that's something that we grapple with as an industry. And we grapple with it because, we've only been 15 years old, and we just did a report where we compare how much value was created from crypto, and we compared it to the internet. And we went all the way back to 1994 with the internet and 2016 for crypto. For the first time in 2024, crypto's value created surpassed the internet's, right? So we are just starting to hit the points of inflection in things that matter for everyone else. But it's important to note that we still haven't solved very, very, very critical things in our industry. And we have some of the brightest minds in human society trying to figure this stuff out, and just wait till this oncoming collision that we have with AI. I think blockchain and crypto is going to be extremely important to the transparency and the trust that gets built using those technologies too. So, the stakes couldn't be higher. Again, we haven't figured it out, and we're trying to build it in real time, and it's tough to be able to balance that.
I think we need to come together as an industry and really try to, scratch that. We're all operating on a public, decentralized ledger, yet most of the way people operate is behind closed doors. People are not transparent about what they're doing. There's no auditability of a lot of processes. And I think this is something that is urgent, right? So coming for transparency, trying to have auditability of the firms you're dealing with is super important. So you want to create trust, you want people to start operating with you, you need to be transparent. Something that was very interesting when we started Defense, we thought, okay, we want to build a product that is tailored for developers and that a bank can adopt internally, right? And so when we thought about, okay, what are the technologic brick that we are going to put together, and how are we going to be actually putting this together, what we realized that it was that open source is as appealing to a Web3 blockchain as a bank's. Because if you want to enter the stack of a bank, you're going to have to show everything that is under the hood. So my point is that the more transparent we are, the more diligence we are in our process, the more people we want to start building with our companies, with our technologies. So that's absolutely the first step, which is super important. The second is use cases. We need to start focusing on use case. Yes, you're right, not everything is solved, but a lot of solutions are out there. You have no excuse today not to be able to actually deploy an amazing user experience when you onboard a normal Web2 user into Web3. There's a ton of non-custodial wallets that exist, depending on the use case, depending on how you want to do with it, what you want to do with these use cases, what you want to integrate with. There's a lot of solutions for you to be building user experience that are easy to grasp. And so now it's use case time. So making sure that we build applications that matter for people, that brings utilities. That's how, generally, as an industry, we're going to become much more trustworthy.
Brilliant, thank you. Eric?
I think it's all just the user experience is extremely important. So we need to get to the stage where people use blockchain, they don't know that they're using blockchain, and it's not a calamity, it's not a catastrophe when they lose their phone or they forget their password or things like this. So Algorand is part of the DRWA Alliance, for example, which is trying to put in place systems so that it can cater for exactly these kind of eventualities, and there's other layer ones are part of that. But I think these sorts of things need to be put in place so that it's not scary all the time that you're pushing buttons on a ledger or putting in sort of lots of words into a device. That needs to be abstracted away.
So then we have 3 minutes left. So I thought you were maybe talk a little bit longer on that one. So basically, I guess I'll just ask each of you to give maybe a 30-second, 1-minute idea of where do we go from here? What's the one thing that you think needs to happen next? Where do you see us in the next 6 months to a year? What's the thing that needs to click for us to really be able to see the scale that we want from this? Kind of connected to the question just now, but what really is that for you? What's your, gosh, if that could happen, that would be great, or what's the one thing we have to do? Elliott?
We have to be better. I challenge everybody, including myself, to be better as people. We have to do things the right way. Like I talked about a lot of experimentation that we had before, but now is the time where we need to challenge ourselves as an industry, as individuals, to make sure we're doing things the right way. And for those that don't know what's the right way and the wrong way, you got to do it the right way, because we will win when we do it the right way, with transparency, with abstraction, with the things that matter, building trust. The way we build trust is we do things the right way. And I know that's hard. That's been hard for our industry because there's a lot of shortcuts and there's a lot of things that happen. And hey, I could do the X, Y, and Z. If you do it the right way, we will be better, and our industry will succeed. And that's the biggest takeaway: is each of us in this room and anyone that's listening is we have to challenge ourselves to be better.
And we talked about in our call the kind of one of the concepts that we brought up that we didn't really hit was just crypto historically has an anti-establishment ethos to it. Real-world assets and the scale of where this thing can be applied to historical financial systems and the world around us cannot be anti-establishment. It can be let's fix the establishment, but it can't be fuck the man. Like there has to be some version of this that grows up if we're going to apply it to real-world assets, because otherwise your apartment isn't going to be we can't have that be a tokenizable asset if you can get rugged on your apartment, or like stuff like that just can't be. So this has to grow up in that sense, like you kind of said. There's nothing inherently wrong with that desire to change that forced a lot of the beginning stuff really in crypto and where it came from. But there is a disconnect there that seems to create a lot of friction about these systems going in the right direction. But thank you, Elliott. I appreciate that. Clarisse?
Yeah, maybe just to add one thing that I didn't talk about, but you touched quickly based on it. It's obviously having some clarity around regulatory frameworks, right? So we're missing the US. The US is finally coming into the game, and I think that was obviously a huge piece of the market that we needed to get onboarded. There's regulatory clarity in Europe, Middle East, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, Latin America, and let's get this last piece on the puzzle, and that's gonna be fun.
Excellent, Eric.
I'll just sum up. I think it's user experience, and things are getting bedded down in terms of the technology and the tools that are available. We're moving to the phase now where we're actually having real life applications, real world uses. The technology's under the hood, and I think when blockchain will be most utilized, when it will really shine, is when it's like the cloud. There's very, very few people in the world who understand how the cloud works. But everybody who's got a phone uses it.
That's an excellent point, I think, to close us out on it. Why has AI created so much interest with people in such a short amount of time? Well, it's very easy. You can go to the ChatGPT website, type something in a box, click return, and it does something for you. That doesn't exist anywhere in crypto where you just easily kind of show up and say, hey, I need a thing, and then it works. We could get there better, but if the wallet's non-custodial, if it's super simple, like
when
if
you
it's,
see
like,
company like Bridge got acquired by Stripe, I want to finish on
Yeah.
a positive note because
No, I do.
we're getting there, right? So Bridge got acquired by Stripe 1.1 billion because they are solving real life issue, global payroll in a minute at a point of a finger,
Yeah.
right? And so
But
this
that's
is
why,
happening.
the reason that I close out with that with Eric and his idea is that this can all go in such a positive, great place, but the value proposition needs to be communicated clearly to people because by and large, most of what we're talking about is behind the scenes. Most of this is infrastructure, which means people are never going to see it. So, and that's been the hard thing about getting people interested in this subject, when in reality, most people are never going to have any interaction with it, but it's going to be involved in all of their daily life stuff. And so I think it is a huge opportunity. I think AI is going to actually push the opportunity significantly for Web3 and all of the tokenized transactional type stuff that we can do. Now we just need to step up, be better, as you said, do lots of good things. I thank all three of you for this. Please give our rockstar panelists a huge round of applause for this panel. Thank you. Thanks.